Hello everyone, my name is Rachel Watling and I'm joined by my colleague Sam Forden, and today we are going to talk to you about some remote digital agronomy and remote sensing examples for the greatest online agricultural show. If you could just go to the next slide, Sam. Sam, if you would like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, as Rachel said, I'm Sam Forden. I'm Technical Manager for Fertiliser, Digital Agronomy and Precision Farming. And I look after some farms. I've got a customer base around Essex, Suffolk, Cambridgeshire, and also look after the technical side of the business with software development and integrating that with the agronomy side of Agri's business.
Fantastic. And tell us a bit about your day-to-day role. Obviously, we're on lockdown at the moment, hence why the greatest agricultural show's gone online. But what does a normal week look like for you, Sam?
Normal week's very varied. It's we provide on-farm support from a precision farming point of view. So that's anything from making variable rate application maps, whether it be seed, nitrogen, P's and K's, lime, right the way through to supporting the agronomy team with using our satellite data and in-field application, Contour Mobile, as well as the platform itself in helping growers and agronomists get the most out of the data we supply. And that goes from everything from making the map to sometimes sitting in the cab and getting the GPS box to work, so it's pretty varied.
Brilliant, thanks Sam. So I believe you're going to show us a few examples today of what you've been seeing out in the field, alongside what you've actually been seeing at your desk through the restrictions, and talk us through that. So fire away.
Yeah, so we've got some examples of different levels of Riser and the Contour platform, Contour mobile application, that we've pulled out a selection from some of my growers, and a couple of these are actually from my farm at home, so I can really sort of explain what's going on. But we can see here we've got a spray damage incident that occurred, and unfortunately this was on my farm at home. But our neighbour, the small field you can see at the top that isn't in imagery, decided to spray that off about 3 weeks before Christmas. And we were looking at the imagery at the winter barley crop that's growing in the field at the time, and we could see that this dark red area on the NDVI imagery was starting to show through. So
sorry, Sam, what does NDVI stand for, just for everyone's benefit?
NDVI is optical spatial satellite data, which is looking, it stands for Normalized Differential Vegetative Index. Effectively, it's looking at the amount of infrared light that is reflected from a given area. And what that tells us is if there's more reflected from one part of the field to the other, there's typically a higher biomass there. And that really is primarily for things like variable rate nitrogen applications and variable rate fungicides, PGRs, etc. But using that data alongside a scouting app such as Contour Mobile, you can physically use this for crop walking and identify areas in the field of interest that you might not necessarily always see when you're just doing a general crop walking. So it's got an application within precision farming as well as sort of agronomy. And like I said, we noticed this red area, dark red area appearing in the field that when I looked back at the images, started very small and ended up being almost out to the headland tram line, as you can see. When we wandered up there, I think it was, day before New Year's Eve, wandered up there and had a look at dog for a walk. Top of the farm, so we hardly ever go there, to be fair. And got there to see that, you can see in the observation I've dropped on the application, which we then looked at in the desktop version, that the crop was pretty badly affected by some drift and some glyphosate that had been applied by our neighbour, which led to an interesting conversation. But we'd spotted it, we'd noted it, and then that sort of reminded us come harvest to go back and look at the yield map and just see what the knock-on effect from the yield was. And to be fair, the barley recovered fairly well, but had we not had the imagery, it would have been probably P0 when someone was next up there and would have seen it. By that point, it could have growed away a bit, and we would have just thought it was poor crop due to the headland effect or something. So catching it early was a useful thing to do.
Makes sense, Sam.
And let's just flick on to next one. This one's a bit more precision farming orientated. So it's a cluster of mine on the Cambridgeshire-Suffolk border, and we've got heavy clay with a bit of chalk coming through. And the top image you can see in the middle there is an NDVI image, so that biomass image that we spoke about on the last slide. And it's showing some areas of good biomass and some areas of very poor biomass. And bearing in mind this image is taken from, I think it's the first week of March. That effectively is an establishment map of that field. So the customer, we were due to map and sample with our EC map, electroconductivity mapping, which gives you a soil variance map of the field and the farm. We were due to carry that out that summer anyway. So what we do as part of a riser service, as you'll see the bottom left-hand picture on the screen, is a clay map of that field. And what we do, which is very unique to riser, is we classify the soil using a laboratory test called we call it laser texture analysis, but the technical term is particle size distribution. And what that effectively does is give us an absolute sand silt clay value to every management zone, so every soil variant zone within a field and across a farm. And the beauty of having that data, two reasons. One is we can then start to agronomize things like nutrition, so P and K applications. If we know that we are over a certain percentage of sand content, and RB209 tells us, well, actually, you're an index 1 for potash, so every year you need to apply X amount extra, kilos of potash extra, to build an index. Well, actually, when you get over a certain percentage of sand content, is there any point? Because that nutrient isn't going to hold on, it's going to leach, which is why you've got a low index, potentially why you've got a low index to start with. And certainly when you flip that into clay and look at a lot of heavy clays, Essex boulder clay, something I know quite a bit about, but you have a high level of calcium. So as the clay content goes up, typically the calcium goes up as well. It's chalky boulder clay. And if we're looking at a product like phosphate, which is immobile at the best of times in the best of soils, if you start mixing a lot of calcium into the mix, and you get a lot of lockup. So where you've got high clay content soils, it's worth looking at using a specific protected product such as P-Reserve, which is something that Agri use. And we can start to agronomize nutrition, which really, apart from the RB209 recommendations, hasn't really been taken into account that much over the years. But anyway, for the purposes of this, we've looked at the clay contents, and we can see that we're ranging from 43% back to, on the kindest land, 34%. So it's quite a big variance there, it's 10%. And the story I was told when I first started with in precision farming, working for Riser 8 years ago, was that 5% clay difference, 5% difference in clay content can be the difference in walking across the field and your boots walking clean to picking up. And it doesn't sound a lot, 5%, but it makes a big difference. And we take into account that a clay soil is heavier, so it lays wetter over winter, tends to be colder because it lays wetter. And in the spring, that takes longer to warm up. We potentially are going to have a problem with, first of all, germination in a wet autumn like we've just had, but certainly in establishment going into the spring, because it doesn't pillar as much, it doesn't get going as quickly. So in order to get that right, we look at the clay map, and we've on this farm, we've put more seed where the higher clay content is. So that's the map to the bottom right. And one thing we've learned over the years of doing variable rate seed is you've got to be bold. There's no point doing 10% either way. Most drills are varying that on the go as
Sure.
it is. You need to be 20-30% either way to make a difference. And likewise, you can pull it back on kind land. You can lower the seed rate below your target on kind land where you've got meadow ground and stuff might go flat. You can get on the fens where you've got silt roddings through peat. You really need to pull that peat ground back. But the silt roddings, which are a raw soil, you want to be really upping the seed rate there. So that's what we've done. We've looked at the NDVI map in March. We've noticed that there was poor establishment. We've then mapped and sampled it. We've got our soil management zones. We've got our clay content. We know that clay content is driving the establishment on this particular farm, and we've then taken a call to vary the seed based on that clay content. And just to highlight the difference, the image on the left is the one we just looked at. The image on the right is one of these NDVI images, so biomass image from the same week the following year, so the spring after we variably drilled. And we were quite impressed with the amount we've managed to pull the establishment up in that field and even it up.
Yeah, you can really see the difference.
Yeah, and it's, you know, variable seed is a wonderful thing. It's one of the few things in precision farming that's as close to a known science as you can get, in respect that you put more seed there, you're going to get more germination. And seed is so important to get right because it's your first application in the field generally, and it is arguably the most important one, because if you don't put the seed there, it won't grow.
Sure.
The rest of your inputs are pretty unimportant unless you get
irrelevant.
Just moving on, another one where we've had an agronomist rang me up and said, "Can you go and see one of my customers, please? He's got a problem with some rabbit damage on some fields." And this is winter wheat. You can see this is taken last week, so this is quite a fresh example. But yeah, winter wheat crop, quite a good crop actually, to be fair. And the agronomist rang me up and said, "Look, could you reckon we can map out some areas of rabbit damage?" And the issue the farmer's got here, it's a contract farm, and the landlord, they've had rabbit problems for a couple of years now, and the landlord is reluctant to invest in rabbit fencing. And the contractor has sort of starting to tear his hair out. And in the ideal world, you'd present the landlord with a yield map at the end of the year and go, "Look, you've got X% less yield here, and it's purely down to the rabbit damage." But unfortunately, this guy, he hasn't got variable yield mapping on his combine. So we sort of looked at the satellite imagery and thought, well, actually, you can see where those rabbits have eaten the crop off. So I've gone out and with the customer, and we've mapped these two areas within the field. So you've got in high fields there, you can see it's this bottom corner we've walked around, and we've used the app and we've dropped an observation, and then we've marked a polygon, which is then given us an area of just under 4 hectares, and you can see the field there is 14 hectares. So it's quite a sizable chunk of that field which is going to underachieve. But then if you look at mothers, the field above that, all of that area there is rabbit damage, and you can see it's almost 50% of the field which is going to be affected. So that's built a case for the customer to go to his landlord and say, "Look, this is having a big effect on yield, and look, I can show you the difference in the crop, and this is how much percentage of the field has been affected." So it's just a good way that imagery and the Contour platform can not necessarily influence precision farming decisions. This has nothing to do with precision farming, but it's being used as a management tool to aid in decision making.
Makes sense.
This one again is an interesting one. So part of the Contour platform, we have some quite accurate weather data. So it's based on a system which is geolocates the weather to your farms. If you've got multiple farms on there under one business, each farm will get an independent weather report. And the plus side to that is we collect the historical data. So a customer rang me up back in August last year, mid to end of August. And last year, because we had that wet 14-day spell, one variety in particular, KWS Kerin, certainly in the Cambridgeshire area, suffered with shelling out. So what I mean by shelling out is you get a period of wet, then it dries up, and the kernel and the husk around the grain splits and the grain falls out. So it's imperative that you get there and harvest that crop as soon as you notice it's happening. But they were stuck on another farm and had some very flat spring barley they were trying to combine and couldn't get back to the wheats. Anyway, they had a storm come through and they had a hail. They were in a hail belt anyway. So they had an insurance claim. They lost about 50% of the field. And rang me up because the insurance assessor had posed the question to them is, can you prove when the storm came through? And he said, well, I know it came through around about the 11th of August. It was late on the 11th of August. And the insurance assessor, as I said, wanted some evidence that had happened. So he rang me up and said, do you reckon Contour could tell us when this storm came through? So I picked out 3 key elements. Unfortunately, my slide wasn't big enough to show you the relative humidity as well, so I just had to pick the hail and the wind. But to my mind, there's 3 elements that come with a thunderstorm, and it's rainfall or hail, surface wind, so the wind always picks up before a storm, and just before a storm, the relative humidity goes through the roof. So I picked these 3 items and then looked at where the data spike was, and lo and behold, the data spike was on the 11th of August. As you can see, wind and hail, or wind and precipitation, have spiked, and then the humidity spiked just before the storm came. They went back with that data to the insurance assessor, and he said, okay, that's evidence enough for me to process your claim. So that was a big win from something that we hadn't actually ourselves considered to be of massive value, but now we're tuned into that being there. We're looking out for that a bit more. We've had another instance with an agronomist who had a potential claim going through on some sugar beet that had been sprayed and then died, unfortunately. And label recommendation on the recommendation stated that it should not be sprayed within a day of frost, so before frost. Unfortunately, the contractor who came in and sprayed it did spray it before a frost, and then there was a claim came back at us to say, well, you've just killed my sugar beet crop. When we look back at the day of spraying, we look back at the data, we can see there was a -2 frost the night after it was sprayed. So it's good data to have to compare year on year, look at trends, look at things going on with weather patterns. But also, if you need to go back and look at a specific period of time for a specific reason, that data is in there.
Brilliant. And what's the furthest you've ever had to go back, Sam?
What was that, sorry?
What's the furthest you've ever had to go back with data?
So we've been looking, this year there was a really interesting one came up. So part of the data that we supply per farm is growing day degrees. And this year, with a lot of late drilled winter wheats and spring cropping, particularly where there's some spring cropping on farms that haven't traditionally grown spring crops before, there is quite a high risk of gout fly. And one of the emergence is a T-sum model, and Agri have been working with a T-sum model for several years now. And we went back over the bean a couple of weeks ago just to ground truth that T-sum with what the trial data that Agri had pulled together showed. And we were within 5 days of trial where we've had emergence in the various trial sites around the country that we look for gout fly with our T-sum figure in contour. So This year we've been using that in anger with agronomists out there, using that as an indicator of, right, okay, I've hit my T-sum figure, so now I know that within 5 days I'll be up to my 50% adult emergence, which is when you'll go through with a insecticide. So it's just a tool to aid with management and agronomy decisions, to be fair.
Thanks, Sam.
Another good example would be this spring, so February onwards really, with a lot of backward crops. The theory was that we had to get the first dose of nitrogen on early to try and kickstart some of these crops, and there was a window end of Jan, beginning of Feb, where it was dry enough to travel and it wasn't pouring with rain. So I had a lot of customers sort of saying, look, we're itching to get going, what do you think? And then when we looked at the soil temperature data, we could see that, yes, although the soil temperature was sitting around 4 to 5 degrees, and bearing in mind you need a soil temperature of 5 degrees and above for nitrogen mineralisation. So that's when all the bacteria comes to life in the soil, which enables the mineralisation process. And we were looking at the soil temp data, because we've got a 7-day forecast in here as well. We could see that at the time they wanted to apply, yes, we were sitting around the 4 or 5 degree mark, but then looking forward at the weather data for the next 7 days, that was then going to drop below 4 degrees again. And that, coupled with excessive rainfall, which we did have in February, would have been a waste of product, or you wouldn't have got the best out of that product, I should say. Just moving on, this is actually from my farm at home again. So there's a bit of a story behind this one. So this was a second wheat crop. So there's 2 things that this yield map pulled out for us. This is back in 2014, I think. Yeah, 2014. This is before we'd really started using NDVI imagery in anger at home. And we looked at this yield map, and we knew we had the bottom left-hand corner, you can just sort of see in the corner of the square, there's a wood. There was a bit of a drainage issue there, and it laid wet, and the establishment was quite bad. And in the end, we ended up spraying that corner out because it then got stuffed full of blackgrass. And the northern edge, you can see along, there's some bits missing out there. That's actually rabbits coming out. You can see there's like a little plot of land there with a lake in it. Unfortunately, the owner of that didn't seem to have a problem with rabbits coming out and eating all our crops.
What's going on in the bottom right, Sam?
At the bottom right, that is drainage issue. So
okay,
that's where, around that wood, we had a couple of blind moles in there, so the mole drains for that. And you get a lot of shading from the wood there as well, which doesn't help. So yeah, it's a bit of a poor year, but the thing I want to concentrate on for the purpose of this is the variance in field. So it's what I would say a very variable map. So the story behind this field is, because of the poor establishment in the second wheat crop we had, the following oilseed rape crop, as luck would have it, got mullered by flea beetle. So that was a poor crop as well. And we didn't have very good effect with the herbicide. And in hindsight, we should have written the crop off. We should have sprayed it off because it was stuffed full of blackgrass. But we were fairly committed to come March with this crop, and we decided to persist with it to see what we could get. And after that, it should have gone back into a first wheat situation, but with the amount of blackgrass pressure, we knew we had to sort this drainage issue out. We decided to put it into 2 years of spring barley to try and break the blackgrass cycle. And this then, which we managed to achieve, we managed to get the blackgrass under control. And then in the final year, so 2 spring barleys, the year after that, we thought we could chance bring it back into a first wheat situation to get ourselves back on track for rotation, which we did. And on the right is a variable seed map. So this again is based on clay content, because that's the main driver on this farm. And You can see there that we're actually, the rates range from 170 kilos up to 225. And we're putting on more seed where there is higher clay content. So we're trying to get that establishment up. We're trying to get enough seed there to bring the establishment level up. Then we've got a crop we can manage. Hard to drag kicking and screaming if there's no plants in the ground. So this came through till March. So this is the first week of March, this imagery. And conversation with the agronomist, and that field, there is still some variability in there. We looked at the imagery and we thought, yep, there is. You can see when we put higher seed on, lo and behold, we've got thicker canopy. But it wasn't down necessarily purely down to a lack of plant count. So we thought, well, okay, well, we've got a slightly lower establishment where we've put less seed on. The best thing to do now is promote some tillering. So we took a call to vary the first dose of nitrogen. So the map on the left is the satellite biomass image. The map on the right is the variable rate plan that we applied. And we're liquid at home, so we are limited to the tolerance of the nozzles, which you're not limited with the spinner. You can go from nothing to a ton of hectare with a spinner, but certainly with liquid, you've got to work within the tolerance of the nozzles and the pressure in the boom. So we've got a 30 kilo swing of nitrogen here from minimum to maximum. So it's not as much as potentially I think we should have done, but we were limited by the machinery at this point. And we then follow that through to the yield map, which I was pretty chuffed with this. You can see we've sorted the drainage issue out. It's still not ideal in the bottom right hand corner by the woods. It's still not the best, and we've managed to put some rabbit fencing up along the northern edge, which is why that's actually got some crop in it this time. But interesting thing is that we've managed to take those spikes out. We've still got variability there, but it's variability within a tolerance I'm happy with. And what we should potentially do going forward is start to learn to work with that variability more. And it's something Riser are very much looking at, is at what point do we stop trying to force a crop to perform? What point do we accept what we've got and then target our spend more effectively? So that is my 5 examples.
Thanks for that, Sam. You could really see the difference in that yield map on the last slide, couldn't you?
Yeah, it's the yield map is your result sheets for everything you've done that year, and I think as an industry we're not doing enough with them. We need to work more with yield maps. Unfortunately, the technology, i.e. the software side of it, is only really getting to the point where it's catching up to be able to utilize them better. But if you don't take account of what you've achieved at the end of the year, you don't know if you've got it right in the start.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for sharing those in-field examples, Sam, and introducing some of us to the latest precision and digital technologies that are about. I've certainly learned something new today. I hope you have a great rest of the agricultural show that's online this year. And if you have any further questions for Sam on what we've covered today, there's the, probably not the phone number, but the email address you can reach us on, and he'd be happy to go through in any further detail. Thank you very much and stay safe. Bye.
Bye.